Shalom, shalom, everybody. Ariel Bar Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. We are now going to begin a new series, a new course. Don't know how many lessons it's going to go. It's going to go with the flow, because that's what we do here at our KosherTorah School. We are going to learn about what the Torah calls the Eshet Ha'il, the Woman of Valor. This is based upon the verse in Proverbs, Mishle, chapter 31, verse 10. Very famous verse, Eshet Ha'il bihimtza v'rachok mipnim nichra. A woman of valor who can find her prices worth, her values worth more than rubies. Actually, pearls, excuse me. Well, this is actually from verse 10 to 21 song. Actually, we Torah observant men sing every Friday night to the missus of the house or the Shekhinah, as the case may be. So their words very well known. Obviously, you can go look them up in the Bible and read them there. But this is the KosherTorah School. Our school, as you should know by now, is not a place for good old-fashioned Bible study. Plenty of other people are doing that. We here deal with things at a much deeper level to try to get beyond the veil, through the veil, beyond the facade into the essence. If you can, or allow me to use the example of the movie The Matrix, we're going to penetrate beyond the face. We're going to get into the real codes of what's going on. We need to understand, if we want to talk about the role and the place of the feminine in general, before we can define and decide what is the proper role of the feminine, well, where do we go for that? How do we learn it? Now, if I want to preach as a male to the females and say, you should be like this, with my good old patriarchal finger waving in the breeze like this, okay? At one time in human history, that might have been well received. But we are now in a time period, which time will tell if it's good or bad, where that just doesn't work anymore. And there may be very good reason for that. But before we get into understanding the role of the feminine today, before we can understand the nature of the actual degradation that the modern feminist movement has abused women with, we gotta get to the basics. All right, like I said, if I start wagging my finger here and say the Bible says this, this is that, and if you're a believer, you're going to say yes, 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 and if you're a not believer, you're going to go no, 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 and it becomes very polemic. It becomes rather parochial. In other words, if you're religious, you believe one way. If you're not religious, you believe another way. What have we accomplished? That is what happens when you look only at the facade, the surface of a thing. We need to go deeper. So even before we read Proverbs 31, line by line from from verse 10 on, we have to go back, way, way back. And I'm going to give an understanding of the psychology of male and female based upon the Torah of the Ari'zal from Rabbi Chaim Vital, from books like the Otzrot Haim, the Etz Haim. Of course, we have entire in-depth courses on this available at KosherTorah.com. If you're interested in getting into the nitty-gritty details, it's available for you. But before, again, we can address modern-day social issues, and again, to decide right from wrong, good from bad, we got to go back. And as we go back, I'll be revealing, discussing, explaining many of the most ancient Kabbalistic teachings that go back a long, long way. And not only do they go back a long, long way, you will find that many of them are actually echoed in many other philosophical, religious, spiritual schools from around the world specifically and more so in modern psychoanalysis as discovered and explored by none other than Carl Jung. Male and female. What are male and female? Well, let's look far beyond human or other biological anatomy, all right? Because when we are dealing with the definition of male and female, we are dealing with energetic relationships. Now, notice I didn't want to say different energies. I'm not so sure male and female are different energies. Think about it. Magnetism. You have the North Pole and the South Pole. And they are in harmony together because that's what forms magnetism. But magnetism is magnetism. It's an energy. Well, energy is energy. In the beginning, ultimately, there is the unknowable. The ultimate essence, the reality of existence. What can we really say about that? According to the Torah of the Ariel, nothing. The ultimate essence from where everything is derived comes from nothing. So yeah, we have a reality called the first cause. That's what Maimonides refers to it, based on old Greek philosophy, and Kabbalists have adopted it, just like Maimonides did. Matsui Rishon, the first cause, the ultimate source, the ultimate reality of things. Well, what is it? That's my dramatic pause to say, who the heck knows? You're going to ask me what God really is like? We human beings don't have what it takes to understand that. It would be kind of like trying to understand the entire universe. I don't know. Now, I can point to all the books, and I can show you what all the different opinions are, and who wrote that, and who said this, and whatever. All well and good. But the ultimate reality is, this is the Torah of Rabbi Chaim Vital of the Ariel, that in the beginning, all we know is there's something called in Hebrew the Ein Sof, which means without end, the infinite. Now, it's a concept we all know and understand, even though we don't know anything about, because it's so opposite of absolutely everything that we know and understand. Now, here is an interesting description of the beginning that Rabbi Chaim Vital brings down. This is actually unique to his Torah. We're all very familiar with our modern scientific understanding of the Big Bang, right? All of a sudden there was nothing, and then boom, from a little point, everything comes out. Okay. The Kabbalah teaches in almost the reverse, which is actually very cool when you think about it. The Kabbalah says ultimately, this ultimate nothing, for reasons known to itself. He says God originally wanted to be, in quote, called by his names. Notice we use that male form, his. And yet we know later that God is he and she. Let's avoid that for right now, okay? In the beginning, it says that the focus of the initial attention, if you will, it was called the ratzon, the desire, the will. It said concentrated on a point, and from that point withdrew to create an empty space in which the universe could exist. Okay, very curious language. That the creation or existence began from the center point of the infinite. Dramatic pause here while you think about where is the center of infinity. If you know what that is, it's obviously a metaphor, as this entire discussion is. But it's helping us to understand the nature of what we are discussing here, male and female in function, in energetic function. Now, if you want to describe, as is traditional, expansion as being male and contraction being female, that's the way it's normally understood throughout all yin and yang, ma and ben, hesed and gevura, whatever. It's all pretty much the same concept. How does the universe begin? It doesn't begin with something going out. It's something that's actually withdrawing within. So the act of the tzimtzum was not an expansive, external moving male expression. It was an internal absorption, which is actually a female expression. We might as well as say that which we call the tzimtzum was almost like the creation of the womb, wherein which the universe would be born. And that is a pretty accurate way of understanding things. So according to the Ari'zal, so when we are dealing here with male and female, or if you will, Hesed and Gevurah, mercy and severity, the first act of expression in existence was an act of female expression. That puts the feminine up there pretty high. And essentially, all right, here's your chicken and egg question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the male or the female? Go ahead. All right. Answer is the female. But God is the Ein Sof. That's right. And God, therefore, the Ein Sof is male, and therefore the tzimtzum that came out of that, or in it, is female. So the male came first, right? Again, a dramatic pause here. Who said that Ein Sof was male? Where did you get that? Because I throw those words out. Doesn't make it true. No. The Ein Sof, like we said, it's nothing. What can I say? Everything comes from nothing. It's a nothing. That's a something. Oh, I've written about this in detail. Go look at my eBooks. I have a lot of fun with this, right? Something comes from something, but something that came from something came from nothing. But the nothing is a something, and the something is a nothing. So the nothing is not a nothing. The nothing is a something. Huh? You go figure it out. This is why, again, in our KosherTorah school, I don't like dealing with just theory. Because if we're going to talk, you're going to scratch your head. What? All right, what are we talking? You have to have the meditative experience. You have to have the contemplative interaction to be able to gaze upon these things within your own mind. Okay? And if not, none of it's going to make any sense. When Rabbi Chaim actually extracted all of this wisdom, remember, it came out from him in meditative trance. So it is with us. So with that being said, the original tzimtzum was a female act. And in then comes what we call the kav, the line of the Ein Sof, like the light, the light coming down, penetrating into the emptiness. Do any of you see an erotic suggestion with that straight thing penetrating in? Well, don't think that was not there in Rabbi Chaim's mind, because it most certainly was. Indeed, the language that Rabbi Chaim Vital uses to discuss sephirotic interactions is actually censored to this very day. My Rebbe Meir, who taught me, Alav Shalom, he censored it with me. Rabbi Chaim always uses a curious word to describe the union of energies, and that word is zivug. Go look it up. It actually means having sex. But that was a little too provocative. Rabbi Meir said, we always say the word Yehud, which means unity. And, okay, if Rabbi Chaim wanted to say unity, why did he just write miyahed, or, Yehud? Why did he have to say zivug? Well, that's the language he uses. The Zohar, also very, very sexual. But when we refer to sexuality in spirituality, we're not referring to it in its hedonistic forms as it is described in our modern society. We really got to understand the nature of that which we call kadosh and that which we call tameh, or if you will, holy and profane. Our society today, it is the old saying, you probably heard it a million times, there's always darkest before the dawn. The klipa always comes before, the clear light. Well, we're in that stage right now. We're in a state of such sexual chaos and confusion in our society today that eventually, it's because the energies are so out of sync and out of line. I will tell you that the apocalypse to come is only going to happen because it's natural. It's energetic. The universe, the Mother Nature, our planet, the collective psyche of humanity needs to realign. And the more that we get out of sync, the more it's going to come back into sync. And that's just the way it is. So I don't look at all the weird stuff going on here as anything other than a fulfillment of the messianic prophecies of things to come. A few weeks back, we commemorated Tisha B'Av, the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And there's a story that is told that when Rabbi Akiva and the other sages went and they saw the devastation, the destruction of the Temple Mount, they all cried. But then they saw a fox coming out of, what would have been the Holy of Holies, using it as like a refuge. And Rabbi Akiva started to laugh. Oh, Rabbi Akiva, how can you laugh at this? And he quoted them the verse. It says, it was prophesied that this would happen. That the place, would be, returned to a fox's hole. And then the prophecy continued, said that it would be rebuilt. So just like the first prophecy came true, I saw it right now, I'm absolutely sure that the second prophecy will come true too. So when I see the confusion and the chaos today, I recognize that that is the cause and the source of the apocalypse to come and what's going to happen after it. Done. All right? One thing next to another. But now, getting back to energy. Rebbe Chaim goes into a very elaborate description of how the worlds come into being. And he refers to them in 3 stages. And again, if you want to get the details of this, you can go into my Otzrot Chaim course. He refers to them based upon the metaphors of the, the bound and the spotted and the speckled sheep of Jacob. And he refers to them by these names: the akudim, the bound, the nikudim, the points, and the birodim, the united, or the bringing together. And he describes how all the, if you will, levels of consciousness evolved. And I like that word evolved, hishtalshelut, simply because I think it's the more accurate form. In other words, when God created the universe, it grew like a child in the womb. Yeah, that is a very accurate portrayal of things. Even though Reb Chaim uses different languages. He speaks of lights coming out of the ears, and then the nose, and then the mouth, and then the eyes, and they go down, and they fall, and they break. It's into all this stuff. But this is what's interesting in all of it. It was all about balancing the energies of what we call male and female. Inner, outer, higher, lower, and all the different things. And it's because of imbalance that the world of the fallen kings, the shattering of the primordial vessels, came about. Essentially, because male and female, call it yin and yang if you want, were not in proper alignment, sync, and balance, then it materialized in ultimate collapse. Now, here is where we have to discuss something very, very interesting in, if you will, the teachings of Kabbalah. According to almost every Kabbalistic source, and if you go online, KosherTorah.com, look up my articles on the Shemitah, the cosmic sabbaticals, and you will see I give a list of dozens and dozens of all the different authorities, including the Zohar, which speak of what we call the Pre-Adamic Civilizations. No, Adam was not the first human being on this earth, according to our sages. There was full civilizations, races before him in a previous long-lost epoch. Now, when historically was that epoch? I have no idea. Some will say it was the ancient civilization of Atlantis. Well, Atlantis that we remember today might have actually been the pre-flood era on the days of Noah, which would technically have made Noah an Atlantean when he built the ark. Would that be interesting? But you never know. Strange stuff is told about Noah and the building of the ark. He had some weird, technologies there. We read about the ancient Atlanteans that they had that stuff too. put it all together, and you got to scratch your head and go, okay, whatever. But long ago, there were other civilizations on this earth. You know, the history of this, the archaeology of this cannot be denied. On the television program, of course, Ancient Aliens, many of my peers all talk about this, they propagate this, whether it's Giorgio or Eric von Daniken and the like. They're always showing things like Mohenjo-Daro and all these other places. And they look to me as the rabbi with their unfortunate, limited understanding of the Bible, which they take literally and say, you see? They don't say the words, not Giorgio. Giorgio's a great guy, you should know. On a personal basis, he's a sweetheart. And so is Eric von Daniken. We get together at the conferences and the like. And Eric, in spite of however controversial he is, he's a very open guy. We've had some lovely conversations. But generally speaking, people in the, in quote, ancient alien stuff, they want to wag their finger and say the Bible is wrong. It's so frustrating to try to defend the Bible when people don't even know what the Bible says. They read something in English, they think they understand it. And yeah, I'm sorry, your English understanding is not accurate. You don't know the original. You don't know what it was really like. And all I can do is educate you if you're interested in learning. But our rabbis, throughout the centuries, have always known that there were pre-Adamic civilizations. Great, mighty, advanced, technologically advanced civilizations, which very clearly, according to Midrashim, had contact with, those guys up there, them, who they were, where they're from. Good question. We don't need to get into all those things right now. But we've always known about higher races, other dimensions, other places, space travel. This is for the real Kabbalist, old school, old hack, nothing new there. How does this all play into what our topic is? Thought you would never ask. So let's discuss it. You see, going back to Rabbi Chaim Vital, he is really strange because his idea of the pre-Adamic civilizations, of those worlds, the Akodim, the Nikodim, and the Birodim, he said happened exclusively all in the spiritual realms, and there were absolutely positively no physicality prior to Adam, which means he discounts the idea of the pre-Adamic civilizations in total contradiction to everybody, pretty much everybody, before him and surprisingly after him. He even contradicts the Zohar. The Kuni Zohar 36 speaks about it, but what are you going to do? Even one of Rabbi Chaim Vital's greatest commentators, Rabbi Kohen, who wrote the Sha'at Ratzon commentary, all right? He goes into his discussion in the Tikkun Zohar 36 and explains, well, even though Rabbi Chaim Vital says that and everybody else disagrees with him, there is a way that we can put the two together. And he brings down a very elaborate, very clear understanding, which is very nice. But the reason why I digress is so as to be, in quote, scholarly inclusive of the different ideas. Getting back to the business, because we have to put these two together now to understand. Rabbi Chaim says that the realm of the fallen kings, these were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom prior to there being a king in Israel, were actually not kings but queens. That they were the feminine energies. Think of it like this. You have the name of Hashem, Yud, K, Vav, K. All right? Yud, male. Hey, female. Vav, male. Hey, female. In the beginning, the only two realms is the Yud and the Hey, the male and the female. And that female, which is the upper Hey, is shattering of the vessels. The light was too strong for the vessel shattered and fell, leaving the sparks of holiness down below. Get into the Otzroth Chaim class if you want elaboration. This was the domain of the female. It was the female worlds that couldn't handle the expression of the light and shattered. And the upper Hey then became the lower Hey. Well, you have Yud Hey / lower Hey. Something's missing. And that's when the Yud turned into a Vav, and that fell the name of God, Yud K, Vav K. so as to elevate the fallen female. This is the secret of what we call Ma and Ben, and it's the foundation of all Kabbalistic Kabbalah today. You can't practice the Ari'zal or the Rasha system of Kabbalah without knowing and performing this. So, mucho importante, mo'od hashuv, all right, to know and understand this. So much so that I'm planning in the future, not too long in the future, to start some classes in Kabbalistic prayer from the Shara Kavanot and the Siddur of the Rashash to emphasize this so as to put this stuff into practice. I mean, guys, KosherTorah school here, our message is experience, is power. You got to do this stuff. If you're going to watch and listen to me talk and watch me, you see how pretty I am on camera? I don't know why people like watching pictures. I don't know. Listen, it has to be absorbed, all right? You got to really see, not me, but the inner reality of where I'm trying to show you. Remember the old example, Buddhist example. I learned it from Bruce Lee in the movie. the master is trying to teach the student about a lesson about the moon. So he's pointing to the moon up there, right? But the student is looking at the finger of the master. And he says, don't mistake the finger for the moon. Look where it's pointing, not at the pointer. Understand Rabbi Chaim's teachings here. The primordial pre-Adamic worlds were feminine. The pre-Adamic civilizations, Atlantis, were feminine, matriarchal societies. You see, this is what, again, Rabbi Cohen, the Sharatzon, brings down. That when Rabbi Chaim speaks about the fall of the primordial kings, Rabbi Chaim himself makes very clear this happened in the level of the Malchut. Malchut is the physical. So if it happens in the upper world, it happens in the Malchut, then it happens here. Our pre-Adamic civilizations were matriarchal societies. And guess what? Go look at the most ancient archaeologies, and you'll find they were mostly matriarchal. Well, what do you know? What a coincidence. Wink, wink. But the civilizations, which are the ancient matriarchies, collapsed because these were the kings who reigned in the land of Edom prior to there being a king in Israel. And maybe we should refer to those kings of Edom as the queens. Malchut, Malchuyot is always female, feminine. Malchut is feminine. Right? Malchut David, kingdom of David. David's a male, but he's a female soul because he's Malchut. Malchut's all female. The pre-Adamic civilizations were matriarchal, high, technologically advanced, star-traveling, interdimensional matriarchal civilizations. Humanoid, but not necessarily Adamic. They lacked that element of the Adamic. Remember we said they didn't have the original balance of male and female. And that is why their civilizations fell. Collapsed. The big tidal wave of the stories of Plato with the destruction of Atlantis, is that the flood of Noah? We don't think so. We think it was an earlier flood. But then again, we know that there were floods before the flood of Noah, which wiped out parts of the world and not the whole. We don't have a documented, historical line by line, year by year history of the pre-Adamic civilizations. We know they were there. Modern archaeology certainly can point to them. We see it. And what Rabbi Chaim Vital revealed to us from his psychic insights, and what all the other Kabbalists teach us about the pre-Adamics, it all fits together, hand in glove, and gives us the insight into what was then. But now, we need to understand that this, what we call Ma and Ban, that I talked to you about. The Chinese, or not just the Chinese, the entire Oriental, they understood this in the concept what we call the yin and the yang, the merging of the balance of the two. Okay? And if you look at early historical renditions of the yin and yang diagrams that they have from like thousands of years ago in China, son of a gun if it doesn't look a lot like the diagrams, the ancient diagrams of the Sefirot. Go put that into your little archaeological cap and consider that connection, especially when our Midrash teaches that it was the tribe of Reuben, the firstborn, who actually emigrated to and settled in Xin, China. And that many, many, many of modern-day Chinese are of Shevet Reuven, and therefore Bnei Israel. Why is the little secrets going on here? You should see what they says about them in prophecy before the coming of Mashiach. Kind of makes you look around what's happening in the world today and going, and again, not going to get Mashiach stuff right now. Why? Because you got to do male and female. The earlier civilizations were female, matriarchal. What does that actually mean? I'm sorry, my time machine is broken, okay? I don't have enough energy to fire it up and to go back into Atlantis and sit down and have lunch with the Queen of Atlantis. I don't think the Rabbinite would appreciate if I did that anyway. So, yeah, okay, I can't tell you what Atlantis was really like, if it was really ever called Atlantis in the first place. We know that they had a civilization. That's all we know. And it was global and it was intergalactic. That much I can say. That much we know. Oh, did I forget to mention, it's also in the hollow earth, and that they survive to this day in the hollow earth. Yeah. Very curious. Very, very curious. I wrote about this in my disclosure essays. I think it was essay number 4 specifically. It's on KosherTorah.com, front page. If you haven't read them, go check them out. When the civilizations, the pre-Adamic civilizations collapsed, the survivors thereof, the matriarchal civilizations, wanted to rebuild. They just said, hey, it's our world, our planet, we want to rebuild. But a power force called God said, you need something that your society is missing. And therefore, we're going to incarnate within you other souls that come from another higher dimension. We will call these souls Adamic. Now, the Adamic race itself is male and female, but it came to serve a function called the rectifier. All right? In other words, to realign the out-of-aligned female with the male. And that was, again, the creation of the Yud falling down to become the Vav. Well, think about it in terms like this. This is how I describe it in the disclosure essays. Let's say, for example, we have our Earth. And our Earth has whatever disasters that it happens. And we blow up 3/4 of the planet. We're in really bad shape. And now the aliens come. And they say, hey, you guys, we want to help you rebuild. Oh, gee, thanks. We could use the help. But we're going to rebuild you in our image, not yours. How do you think, as a native earther, you would feel about that? You wouldn't like those interlopers, those coming from outside to tell you how to do things different. But it's good to be the king, as they say. Might makes right. And those invaders had the power. They were the Adamic souls. They are us. The Pre-Adamics are still around. They don't like that too much. They still interact in the hollow earth, the astral plane. They're still very much involved in controlling many of the things of this earth. They are what we would call the earth spirits. The earth spirits, the ones that control like the winds, the water and stuff, just like it says in the Midrash, that there's an angel over every blade of grass striking and causing it to grow. Well, these are the earth spirits. They're placed here from the beginning. They're still here. And in the original Greek, they were called spirits, powers. And I think that the original Greek word was daemon. But as history developed and Christianity evolved, they became known as evil spirits. And they were associated with the devil, and they became known as demons. Well, pre-Adamics don't appreciate that kind of association, but it's there. And there's this other race called shadim. They're not demons in spite of whatever people think. They got their own shtick going on. And before Mashiach comes, the entire shadim race also needs to be, in quote, realigned and rectified. And that's another story for another time. But here we are now. The Adamic race comes in. Rabbi Chaim Vital refers to this as the Ma Chadash, the new Ma, Yud-Kei-Vav-Kei, of Adam. And Adam is, again, male and female souls, whose role it was to subserviate the older way, to realign it, so that we could have a balance and a function between the old and the new. What's the ultimate purpose? Not that the new should maintain dominance, but actually, ultimately, here's the great secret, that the new would eventually dissolve. Oh, wow. Did you know that? It's a great secret. The Ari'zal brings this down. I think it's in Sharp Sukkim. Chaim Vital, I should say, brings it down. Based upon the verse in the prophecy of the book of Zechariah, where it says, on that day shall the Lord be one and his name one. Go into the Hebrew. Bayomahu, on that day, Yihye Hashem Echad. Yihye is Yud-Hey, Yud-Hey will be Hashem Echad, one. It's brought down and revealed. Right now, the name of God is Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei. But when the Vav has finished accomplishing its task of realigning the lost female, giving to it what it didn't have, which led to the shattering of the primordial vessels, they will be repaired. Not to stay below as the lower hay, but they will absorb and they will ascend back to the upper hay. And the Vav will no longer need to be there. And the Vav will reform, restore, reverse, whatever, to the Yud. And when Mashiach comes, the Messianic redemption, the name of God will be Yud-Kei, Yud-Kei, not Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei. And that is the secret of the coming of Mashiach. It's the rectification of the female, the rising of the fallen queens, the rectification, Tikkun Malchut. Now, this gets really wild when you want to consider it. Why? Because if you really look at it, if you will, kipshuto, according to its very simple statement, it means the restoration of the matriarchy, not the patriarchy. And if that is actually going to be the case, then we might consider looking for Queen Mashiach as opposed to King Mashiach. Now, don't go accusing me of heresy, please. This is messianic speculation based upon Kabbalistic insights, and only time will tell. Who knows? So, but it's interesting to consider. What do you think a restored matriarchy, the rectified fallen Sag, as we call it, what do you think it's going to be like? We have insights. We have knowledge. We know what to look for. Because the female within Adam, we call that Chava, Eve. And Eve herself, if you remember, she had a rough time in the garden, right? She was hit on by this hot, sexy-looking serpent guy. You go, hey, baby. And then so, I'm making fun. The Bible says the snake spoke. You know, for those of us who live out in the rural areas and actually interacted with snakes, do any of you ever seen snakes, actually had a conversation with a snake? I talk to Sierra, my dog, all the time. All right? Sometimes she knows, sometimes she doesn't. Text, God bless his soul. No one's going to tell me he didn't understand. I mean, I would talk to Text. I could actually have depth conversations and I could see nuance and he had understanding. Every time I've tried to speak to a snake, it just doesn't connect. You know, I've never been actually able to get simpatico. Oh, you know, I'm being facetious now. If I really wanted to get psychic and go into the mind and stuff, yeah, you could do all that kind of stuff, all right? I love going into, Ellie and I think it was not this summer, I think it was last summer, we were out in South Dakota. Yes, we went to Sturgis the week before the rally. Stayed during the rally, a little too wild for an Orthodox rabbi. But we were there the week before. Anyway, there was this really great reptilian, what is it, a zoo or something, wildlife place, and they had all of this most gorgeous alligators. And like a child, I said to Ellie, I want one. And every now and then, there's a little joke in between us. She sends me all the videos of the alligators, that they see in Alabama and Florida. And I said, something, if we were ever ended up in Florida or Alabama, I would adopt an alligator. She thinks I'm totally insane. But I told her, you do that when we get married. So male, female, you gotta fix one another here. I'm the crazy one who wants to talk to alligators, pet one. Can you imagine me having a class here, having my little alligator in the yard, petting the alligator? She thinks to have an iguana. I want an alligator. I want a big 15-foot alligator. Put it on a leash, walk down the street, have one of those little yap dogs. Bap, bap, bap. Yeah. I know you all think I'm nuts. That's all right. I am nuts. So that's okay. This is what happens when you deal with energies and stuff. But anyway, hey, I told you, our KosherTorah school, everything is raw. We don't have any editing garbage. Everything here is the emet al PreAdamic, the kachazeh. Now, getting back to our stuff. And this is, again, we go into the fun, we go back to the serious. Dealing with all of this stuff, male and female, pre-Adamic civilization, pre-Adamic entities, astral projections, remote viewing, psychic interactions, intergalactic, interdimensional. And we're dealing with all this weird and wild stuff. What the frick does it have to do with what's going on today? Can a woman, yes or no, join a minion? No. Why not? Now let's start to tie things together. Because when you look into the ancient past, you understand the ground in which the seeds of modernity have grown. Modernity did not begin in the 1960s with liberation movements of the kind. This is pre-Adamic, dating to modern times. And if you don't understand the psyche, the energy, how do you understand energy? Let's get female here. In my ebook, Sefirot Within Us, I outline the 10 Sefirot within human personalities. For those of you familiar with the diagram of the 10 Sefirot, you have a right column, which is called the male, and the left column, which is called the female. So we're talking about the female now. Let's talk female. The left column of the female includes the Sefirot of Bina, understanding, Gevura, severity, Hod, glory, and that's the left column. But we now, here on the earth, we're in Malchut. So if you're going to ascend, you're supposed to ascend up the center column. But male energy is right column. Female energy is left column. So let's go up the left column path. Oh, the left column path is not the dark side. No, we're not Sith Lords. I'm not secretly Darth Vader or anything of the kind. And in all due respect to the wild, crazy people out in the alien world, we Jews are not reptilians. If I actually peeled my skin away, you'd see blood, not reptilian. I don't have a forked tongue or reptilian eyes or anything of the other stupid nonsense that you got all these crazy people out there, and the more crazy who actually believe it. Getting back to the business now. When we want to understand, I just lost my train of thought with that one, you should know. But when you want to understand all this stuff, Sefirot and the like, how do you do it? Okay, you're going to take my ebook, you're going to read it, and you'll get the knowledge. But like I said, everything at our KosherTorah school is based upon experience. Sefer Yetzirah course is all about experiencing the Sefirot. The top Sephira, as we said, of the female is understanding. It's actually intellect. The realm of knowing, the realm of the mind, is actually the realm of the female. The realm of the intuitive and the imaginative is actually the male. So I thought that was all female. No, it's the female that's attracted to it. That's why she's able to draw it in much easier. Women, in the emotional realm, is the realm of Gevura, severity. Well, I thought, women are supposed to be nice and soft, and men are hard and tough. Yeah, right. Tell that to any woman. Any woman who really knows, her man knows that she rules the roost. All right? Ellie here, God bless her. Remember, she's young enough to be my kid. But when she puts her foot down, she knows how to put her foot down. All right? And what can I say? She knows I'm a nice guy, and she says, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Cool. Yeah. Okay. There's balance, of course, but that's Gevurah for you. Okay? Gevurah is severity, toughness. All right? In the wise words of good old Billy Shakespeare, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. All right? If a guy is scorned and angry, he most likely could pass. A woman, never. I mean, Ellie and I can go through example upon example of that when you have that. Gevurah! Female. That's the way it is. Hod. Hod is glory. Hod really means niceness. Nice stuff, fancy stuff. You know how that's materialized in women today? The fact that they wear like makeup and fancy colored clothes. That's the attribute of Hod. It really is. Me? If I'm a guy, you know what? Okay, I'm modern Orthodox. I don't dress Eastern European. I'll go and wear a good old pair of t-shirt, a good old pair of jeans and a gold, t-shirt, my black leather jacket. It's kind of the way I dressed like I was 16. Yeah, I still dress like that when I'm 60. Except with, keep on tzitzit and all the rest. But women, they're not that black and white, right? Look, even in the most professional of arenas, business, politics, you'll always see the men wearing the dark business suits. But the women are always wearing very colorful clothing. Now, they can be very modest. They can be very fashionable, high-end fashion. But you'll notice fashion is more so a woman's thing than it is a man. Yeah, there is some men's fashion. But leave it to the average man, and he's not a fashionista. The women are. The women are. That's a very normal thing. So, here we are in Malchut. The first step of ascent, of course, is Yesod. Yesod is sexual energy. And if sexual energy is not properly balanced and directed, like a fire hose spurting out water, everything gets wasted. Our civilization today is all wasted Yesod, which is why the entire building of the Sefirot is coming and toppling down. All the problems that we're seeing now with pandemics and societal upheavals and all the rest, all of this is based upon an energetic imbalance, which is only going to get worse before it gets better. You heard it here. I don't know if I'm first, but you hear it here. Yesod energy, sexual energy, has to be properly balanced. Now, you notice our Torah deals with the laws of this world. That's why we have halachot, the way to go. That's malchut, physical things. Do this, don't do that. And most of it, a lot of it, it deals with sexual balance and propriety. That's why we believe in monogamous relationships between a male and a female. Sorry, no other way. And it has to be committed, whatever, etc. Balance in that respect, because that's what creates the harmony. And if you are female, then the proper channel of that energy will bring you into Hod and into Gevurah and into Bina, because that is the natural progression of the left column of the Sefirot, the female side of the Sefirot, bringing it way back to Keter. And this is inside each and every one of us, male and female. Remember that word Adam. God said Adam, Adamic race, male and female. Adam is male and female. If you look at the numerical value of the word Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, 45. Well, the male element in that is referred to by the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem. And the female is therefore 19, the leftover, 26 plus 19, 45. And that's Chava, Eve. So when Chaim Vital refers to the small face of God, Ze'er Anpin, he always refers to it by its numerical value where the name of God is spelled out. Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud is Yud Vav Dalet, Hey is spelled Hey Aleph, Vav is spelled Vav Aleph Vav, and Hey is spelled Hey Aleph. That's called Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei of Alephine, of the Alephs. Numerical value 45 if you add it all up. And the base, the Yud Kei Vav Kei itself, is the male. And the inner letters that we just expanded, that's 19, the female. So Adam has always been male and female. And if we look at modern psychology, Carl Jung, he recognized and understood within every single human being, you have male and female. Now, I am not a doctor, but from my limited understanding of biology and chemistry and all the rest of this stuff, I think that the difference between biological male and biological female is what, like one little chromosome or something like that? It's just one little thing, which essentially means that every biological male is technically only 51% male, but he's 49% female. And the biological female is only 51% female and 49% male. In psychology, Carl Jung saw this. And he recognized that within every single male, there's the inner female, the anima. And in the female, there's the inner male, the animus. I think I got that right. Anima, animus. But anyway, the point is that when we look inside ourselves in spiritual ascent, which is what, KosherTorah school and all that, meditation stuff, and we're making the ascent up the tree of the Sefirot. Yeah, I didn't mention the male, female, the male Sefirot. That's not the point. Go Sefirot among us, within us, book, and see for yourselves. And as we go up that center column, we have to recognize the male and female energies and learn to balance them. Our Torah is a guide and an example of how all of this is done. So when we read in the Torah the stories of Adam and Eve and what happened in the garden, and later stories of Abraham and Sarah, Yitzhak and Rivka, Yaakov and Rachel and Leah and all the rest, you will see some very interesting psychodynamics between male and female. And for those who want to look at the Bible and condemn it as an anti-feminist, patriarchal book, you need a little bit better education. That sounds like almost like Orwellian propaganda. It's just so false. I mean, you have to look at the characters of like people like Devorah and the like. Just recently, I posted on the website. I think I actually put it up on YouTube as well as on Facebook. A little something I wrote on the Woman of Valor. It's up there, and it's a description of pretty much what we talked about tonight in class. And of course, here's the front page of Sefirot Within Us. Nice little ebook here. You can see all the table of contents if you want. Stop the camera and you can go reading all that stuff. I get into detail with stuff. And all of this is just the beginning, just the icing on the cake. Because we're going to get back into Proverbs, chapter 31, the famous Eshet Chayil. And it's very interesting. I love looking at numbers. So here's Eshet Chayil. Here's the Hebrew. And as I was looking at the first verse, Eshet Chayil mi yimtza barachok mipani michra, right? A woman of valor who can find prices far more than pearls. Okay, fine. Okay, I like words, and you'll see that it's actually a poem, but I'm looking at letters. So I looked at the capital letters of the 7 words, Eshet Chayil mi yimtza barachok mipani michra. The numerical value of the initial letters is 145. So that's curious. Let's look at the last letters, because we're talking about the female. First letter is always male. Last letter is always female. Sefirot, we call them. So I looked at the first ones, Tav, the last letter in Eshet. Lamed, the last letter in Chayil. Mi, last letter in the Yud, in Mi. And then Aleph, the last letter in Yimsa. I said, oh, look at that. 441. The numerical value of Emet, truth. And then I looked at the last 3, Kuf, Mem, Hey. Hey! The last 3 words, their last letters are the same numerical value of all the first 7 letters. I said, that can't be a coincidence. There's got to be something to it. So I thought, okay, 145. What do I know about that number? 145, 140. Well, 45, I already know what that is, don't I? Yud Vav Kei, Adam, yeah. And the word, or I should say the numerical value, 100, very interesting, because it's multiple levels of stuff. right? Multiples, 2 zeros, which means plural. I said, you know what? The Shekhinah is called Kol, which means all. But then I thought, it could also be for the word Kelim, which means vessels. The numerical value of the word Kelim is 100. Adam, the vessels of truth is Adam, or Adam is the vessels of truth, and Adam is male and female. So the woman of valor is defined within the context of the male relationship, just like the Ben is defined in the context of the Ma, like the Yin is defined within the context of the Yang, just like the Anima and the Animus within us. Essentially, you cannot separate male and female. They are one. Zivug. And when our society today creates a war between the sexes and creates a schism socially and the like between men and women, it echoes and reflects psychologically to a schism within each and every individual psyche, splitting our individual internal unity, which is a shattering of the vessels all over again. We know what happened then, so we know what's going to happen now. And on that lively note, I'm going to conclude right now. I laid the foundations of what we want to talk about, where we want to go. In our classes to come, we'll go through the Eshet Chayil, line by line, look for deep stuff, look for cool stuff, echoing back to the teachings that I outlined today, and other types of stuff that we're going to learn from the Torah and places like that. So let's leave it at that. I want to thank you again all for joining me. Check out my ebook, Sefirot Within Us. I'll put a link to it somewhere. And or you go to my KosherTorah.com page, go to eBooks. You'll find it there. And if you're interested in more details of this, take the Otzrot Hayim class. It's available, again, KosherTorah.com. And I'll see you in our classes to come. Watch for the Shemot Kodashim, the using of the holy names courses. I started it today. The lesson shorts are going to be available on YouTube, Facebook, and Patreon. And you want to get rocking and rolling? That's where you start. Talk to you all soon. Shalom.